This is a TalkStation original podcast.
This is Marlin Masters, a brand new podcast from the Carteret County News-Times, where we hear from the renowned captains of the Big Rock Blue Marlin Tournament. We talk about how they got their start, the big fish they've caught, and the ones that got away. This episode with Dale Britt of Weldor's Arc is brought to you by Morehead Motor Company, selling cars like candy bars.
Dale, thank you so much for being with us, man. Captain of the Weldor's Arc for the last 4 years, but you were on Sensation before that, right? How long were you on there?
That's correct. I had the Sensation for 15 years.
Okay.
Prior to that.
Why the switch from Sensation to Weldor's Arc?
Well, I decided to retire.
Okay.
From the Sensation, and so after I stepped down, I sold the boat, and then actually sold it to another fella from Greenville named Mike Rowe 4 years before I stepped off of it. He called me and wanted to buy the boat, and I told him I wasn't interested in selling the boat because I didn't want to stop fishing. He said, well, I wouldn't buy the boat if you weren't going to run it. So anyway, I said, you're going to pay me, you're going to buy my boat, you're going to pay me to run it. And
how often do y'all go out through the year?
Back with the Sensation, generally 100 to 140 days a year.
And now what do you do?
Well, now on the Weldor's Arc, it's a private boat, so we primarily tournament fish, Marlin tournament fish, and actually last year I did approach 50 days.
Okay. Okay. And y'all going all over the Bahamas and Bermuda and?
No, we do not. We stay local.
Really?
Like a lot of the other guys, like Brent Gaskell and those guys, they go to
DR, yeah,
and
sure.
Bermuda and Bahamas, everywhere. We really stay local. We fish 11 tournaments, basically from North Carolina to Maryland. Okay. And this year we're going to tie up in Cape May, New Jersey.
Oh wow!
For the White Marlin Open out of Ocean City.
Oh, is it like Egg Harbor? That's pretty close to.
It is. It's South Jersey Marina.
Sure.
It's about 30 miles north of.
Okay.
But that's such a zoo up there. I mean, there's 400 boats in the tournament.
It's a different animal.
Find a slip. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's right.
Well, the reason why we got this podcast going is we wanted to speak to people that had been doing this for a while and had a lot of success. Weldor's Arc the last 2 years, winner of the NC Billfish Series, formerly known as the Governor's Cup. You've had a great run. We've seen you at the Way Station a couple times at Big Rock, KWLA, or some of the other tournaments. What's the last 4 years been like for you on Weldor's Arc?
It's been fun. It really has been fun. We've caught a lot of marlin. I think last year we caught 34 blue marlin, which is, it was fabulous actually, because typically, when I was running the Sensation and with most of the charter boats, you feel lucky to catch a dozen, 15 blue marlin a year. And so, it's been a lot of fun. The John Roberts, who owns the boat, has been a pleasure to work for, and we've been blessed.
You talked about that blue marlin bite. It feels like it's gotten better in the past 5 years. I don't know. There was times in tournaments past where we might have 2 or 3 blue marlin come in, and then suddenly there's 14 and 10 and 11, and they seem to be out there.
Really, they really are.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware of it. Last week, there were a few boats that got 5, 6, 7 in one single day. We fished yesterday. We actually were 0 for 2. We hooked 2 big fish, and actually hooked 1 big fish for about 5 minutes, and pulled him off, and then we missed another great big fish on a long rigger. But it's really unusual. We were marlin fishing strictly yesterday, just kind of a fun trip, no tournament.
I was gonna say, is it like a prep for the tournament coming up, or
kind of sort of?
Okay, mm-hmm. Sort of a dry run there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you talked about being Sensation captain for 15 years. Did you do anything beforehand as far as captaining?
Sure. I had a boat called the 40-something, which was, it was a 47-foot Rose Brothers.
Okay.
And before that, it was a 32-foot Albemarle,
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you've been doing this a while?
Since 1990.
Okay.
This will be my 34th straight year, good Lord willing. It'll be my 34th straight year of fishing the Big Rock.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think we talked before, and you said you grew up in High Point.
I did.
So not necessarily growing up around the water. What got you into this?
Well, so my dad and my grandfather brought me down to Carteret County when I was a kid, and fell in love with the place. My dad, we didn't particularly have any money, so they didn't have the opportunity to get on a charter boat and go offshore. But we pier fished and surf fished and all. And then when I was in college, I worked down at Emerald Isle Marina. I came down and worked there for the summer and did a little inshore guiding out of the marina. And that really got the bug. And I fished, with other folks, and really decided that at some point in my life I was going to become a charter boat captain.
The bug bit you.
It did. So, I was in High Point working there, and as soon as I had an opportunity, when my children graduated college and went on their own, I told my wife, I said, okay, it's time. And that was back in 2000.
Oh, wow.
So we came down and built a house. And although we had a condo with some other folks from 1990 but we built a permanent home here in 2000 and moved in 2002. So people always ask me if I'm a Carteret County guy, and I say no, but I got here as quick as I could.
It grew on you. That's a fair.
How were you paying the bills before you became a charter boat captain?
So in the real estate business, real estate development primarily, and still piddle with that a little bit simply to keep food on the table because hard to make a living as a charter boat captain, and it's really hard to make a living as a charter boat captain owner. You'll see the transition has been for most of the guys who have owned charter boats, they'll transition into a private job, or somebody will buy their charter boat and they work for them. It's very difficult. It's not like the old days. Boats are so expensive, and fuel and everything about it. They're back in the old days, the guys used to build their own boats and 8-knotted out to the King Mackerel grounds and 8-knotted back home, and they can make a good living then. But these days, with boats, you got to be fast, you got to go far, and it's just it's a whole new game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm how much you've been doing this since 1990? How much has it changed over the last 34 years?
I'm gonna say it's changed dramatically. Back when I was on the waterfront, we still had Terrell Gould there, and as far as the some of the older boats and George Bedsworth and those icons. Buddy Harris, and of course Ace Harris was there the first few years I was there. But those guys, they'd get on, they'd be at the dock in the morning. Back then it was but I'm gonna say it started changing in the 90s. But it was mostly King Mackerel parties for those guys. And they'd sit on the dock and wait for people to walk along, and they'd, get a deposit of them, they'd go fishing. So, and there's some colorful guys down there then, and still are. You guys need to interview Buddy Harris at some point in time before he leaves here.
That's something that we have another podcast, the Paper Boys podcast, and we're trying to make sure that some of these folks that have been involved in athletics for years get a chance to tell their story.
Well,
so Buddy Harris will be a good one.
People who graduated high school in the 50s and 60s.
That's right. That's right.
Don't need to be wasting no time.
Yeah,
you got to get that in. That's a good idea.
Yeah, Ace Harris was his dad, and Travis Fulcher, who used to mate for me some. He kicks himself all the time because he didn't go sit down with a tape recorder and interviewed Ace Harris with get all his stories. But Buddy Harris is still here, and he's got plenty of good stories.
That's a good one. Well, being the Big Rock for the last 34 years as well, has that also changed? I mean, I think back 1990, y'all must have been competing for a purse of maybe a couple $100,000 and I don't know, maybe 70 boats or something, and if that, and now it's just massive.
Big Rock has been blessed. Community's been blessed because of the Big Rock.
That's right.
No doubt. And of course, the Big Rock has, it really has become, it's the Masters of the fishing tournaments. The golf world is the Masters, and that's everybody all over the world knows about the Big Rock, and really serious marlin fishermen. They want to become a part of it.
Was it? I mean, obviously, it wasn't always like that. Has it, being someone that's here for the most part? Has it been weird to watch your home tournament kind of grow into that Masters tournament? I mean, it started out as just a regular tournament that everybody, and then now it's a worldwide level. It's known, like you said, and being someone that's been in it for 34 years, that's got to come with some cachet.
Well, no doubt, and I think that, like I said, back in the 90s, the boats were slower, and the boats were, of course, Jarrett Bay started in 1986 and, finished the sensation in 1988. And then they built boats, 1 a year, 2 a year, whatever, for the longest time. But if you think about the transition of boats and speed and all that, you all of a sudden you had, back in those days you had Omi Tillotts and, Buddy Canaday and those guys up in Wanchese building boats. Then Randy started building them down here, Randy Ramsey. But then Viking came on the scene, and Rybovich was there already. But Hatteras was somewhat there. But point being that John Bayless and then Paul Spencer, and all of a sudden, back in the early days of the Big Rock, it was just local boats because boats couldn't travel like they can now.
Right.
So the transition has been now you've got 60, 70, 80, 90 foot boats that come from all over the world, and they get here fast. But I think that's the difference. The boats and the ability to get to Morehead City, and coupled with the good fishing.
Even during the week of the tournament, they're coming in from Hatteras, coming in from Oak Island, just to go out there in the morning each day. I mean, that's a haul.
It is.
But it's worth it.
But I think the biggest reason for the growth of the Big Rock is simply that that all of a sudden and people, of course, we went through some droughts during the bad times in 08 and 9 through that period of time, and the census of the Big Rock dropped considerably. But no, I think folks with money now are coming to Morehead City.
Yeah, it's the place to be.
Look at Michael Jordan.
That's right.
That's right.
That's how you know you've made it.
That's right.
I would imagine the technology differences is night and day from when you started to now.
Unbelievable. I mean, it really is unbelievable. The back in the days, I remember Woo Woo Harker. Told me one day I took my daughter and we went fishing on the Carolina Princess with him, and he saw me down there. He said, "Dale," and that was after I was a charter boat captain, but he said, "Dale, come on up here on the bridge." So I went up there with him, and Alice and I went up with him, and we were watching Woo Woo talk, listening to him talk, and he said, this by now we had GPS, and fast boats and all, but bottom line is Woo Woo said, back in the day, he said a fellow would come with his son, and he said I'd invite him to come up on the bridge, and we had paper charts, and we had paper bottom machines and this, that, and the other, and they'd sit there wide-eyed, listening to me tell stories about how we go out and find the bottom, how we find fish, this, that, and the other. He said, today, you can buy a 24-foot boat, you can get a GPS, you can plug in your coordinates, you can go anywhere you want to go, and and land on a dime. He said you don't have to. He said the technology is so it's advanced so far that he said now I get a guy and his son and come up on the bridge and they're not a bit impressed.
Right. It looks just like a cell phone, like whatever they have at home, right?
But and technology, talking about that, it's so dramatically changed in the last few years simply because of this Omni sonar, and it's really. I'll say it. I've told everybody, and we've had discussions with the Big Rock and on the board and such about changing the rules and this, that, and the other. And you see in the tournaments now having two divisions, sonar and non-sonar, because it's not a level playing field at all.
Because they're expensive to purchase.
They're expensive, and and they're effective. I mean, they actually have a range of almost a half a mile around the boat if you choose to stretch it out that far.
And then Brent was saying if you've got the Seakeeper on the bottom and it keeps it all level, boy, you've got a real clear image.
You do.
Now, of course, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to, once the fish is on the line on the teaser, that you can do anything with it, but still.
We ride over a lot of fish that don't care anything about us.
That's right. That's part of the game.
It kind of reminds me of golf or tennis, and you hear people talk about the rackets and the clubs and how different, it's an easier sport now. Has it taken a little bit of the skill and the talent out of it, all that technology? You know what?
I'll just be honest with you. I've told several people this, but, now you've got sea surface, you've got these ROFR reports you can get, or there are a variety of other sea surface temperature reports that you can get, RIP charts, Hilton, and so I use all those tools. So now I get up in the mornings, 4 o'clock, I go upstairs, I get on my computer, I pull up sea surface temperature charts, and I look at the eddies and I look at the temperature changes, and if it's not a cloudy day. If it's cloudy, you go back a few days and try to predict where it might be. But if you get a clear shot, I sit upstairs on my computer, I look at the sea surface temperatures, I look at the buoy reports, see what kind of, look at the wind reports, of course, and I make the decision upstairs in my house before I leave the dock.
Where you're
before
going?
I go to the boat is where I'm going. Wow. So then, I go to where I'm going. I slow down, lower my riggers, start putting the baits out. I put my Omni sonar down, and I start playing a video game. So yes, it's changed dramatically, and it's really kind of sad because, whereas we used to look at the water, we look for changes, we look for birds, we look for, devices, or floats or whatever. And now, I find myself, my head is stuck in that daggone, in that video game all day long, looking for little bananas out there.
That's a great way to put it, the video game.
So, and that's it, So I told John Roberts, the owner of the boat, I've been trying to. Last year I had help on the bridge running the Omni sonar, but I told John Roberts this year for all the tournaments I wanted somebody up there with me, doing nothing but looking at that, studying that. I wanted to be able to look around.
So you don't have to focus on that yourself.
Get around grass, and when I get around grass, I'm looking at that, and all of a sudden I'm in a hayfield of grass, and everything gets grassed up, and my mates get mad at me, and but no, it's yeah.
Now, how about any other preparation that you do before the day? Or before the tournament? Like I went and visited Casey last year before Big Rock, and him and his son Cole were prepping the boat. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I'd never, seen this process, and it was really involved. They're tying lure. It was just boxes everywhere, gear everywhere, and it all had a very specific place. And do you typically do that as you lead into the season, or is it tournament by tournament?
I've been really blessed with really good mates.
Okay.
Back in the day, I had, like I said, Travis Fulcher and Chris Russell, C.R. Russell, and some of those guys for in the early years. And then I got Alan Skybel, Big Country, on board, and he runs a boat. He was with me for 9 years, and he's on a boat called the First Look now, and is a very, very good captain, very fishy. Very good at it. And then after Alan, Patrick DeFore was with me for 7 years, and now I have a fellow named Stuart Merritt who is an awesome, he's a captain in his own right. He has a boat called the Miss E, but he'll take over the bridge of the Weldor's Ark.
Sure,
I will say that. But anyway, I've always had an eye on everything, but at the same time, the talent that I've had on the boat in the cockpit, I trust them, and unless there's something I don't like about the spread, they've all been very fishy, and they know what to do and they know what to pull. All I've ever told any of them is to make sure you got a damn sharp hook on the boat, because that's the most important thing on a boat is a sharp hook. But for the most part, I let the mates make the decisions on. But everything is well done months in advance of tournaments.
Okay.
And we typically will stick with pretty much the same. If it works, don't fix it. We fix it. Work with the same spread.
What does that look like when you're out there? 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines?
Typically, we'll pull 4 lines, 2 teasers, and 2 dredges.
Okay.
In tournament fishing.
Y'all typically use the same lures and things like that from day to day? For
the most part, wind conditions, sea conditions, dictate some of it, because, when you get into heavier seas, you can't put the lighter weight stuff out there. You have to get a heavier tackle or heavier lures and such to keep them in the water. But, yeah.
So Zach was talking about the preparation that goes into it and how much work's involved, and you were mentioning getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're talking about people don't really do the charter boat captains full time because it's not that lucrative. I would imagine another reason people may not want to do it full time is it doesn't sound like the schedule is a lot of fun.
Well, I missed a lot of family time and friend time. I really did, and I really, in hindsight, if I had it to do over again, I would have probably gotten a private boat job 10 years
from the
earlier,
jump. Okay, yeah,
than I did, because, the Friday nights, Saturday nights, parties, birthday party, whatever, I had to be in bed at 8 o'clock, whether it was, no matter what was happening the next day, and so, and that's the way it is with, these guys. And I remember Omi Tillett's telling a story one time about fishing. I think he said he fished like 70 days in a row, and he was sitting at the dinner table at home in Nag's Head, and he said his next thing you know, his face was in the mashed potatoes.
That's when it's gone too far there, a little too hard.
It can get exhausting.
Well, it's not just the time commitment that y'all have to give. There's a lot of pressure when you're out there in these tournaments. There's a lot of money on the line. Yeah. You're trying to perform. You're trying to get the right fish. And how do you deal with that when you're out there? Does it ever get to you? You feel it?
Well, I hate to let anybody down, but my mantra has always been when people get on the boat, I tell them to lower their expectations right now. Just before we get on the boat, before we go out there, just lower your expectations. If we get a bite, great, but don't expect it. And so I tried to build my case before we get out there, but still, yes, it's very disappointing when you don't produce, for folks. And we've been somewhat blessed over the years with our performance.
And obviously there's a love for it. I mean, you come back every year. You were ready to retire. John Roberts gives you a chance to come back. What is it about being out there that keeps you coming back?
Every day I go now, I keep thinking, daggone, man, I don't want to quit this. I do not want to quit this. It's just, it's God's great North Atlantic Ocean. You never what you're going to see out there, and it's just it's really special. But again, there's a lot of special stuff on shore too. So
that's right.
But I think I've found a balance right now that I'm so happy with.
I'm curious too, just to go back to some of the balance between technology and who you are. Being that you've fished these waters for so long, do you think there's an advantage to knowing the waters like you do when you're fishing these tournaments compared to some of the folks that do bring their boats from far off that don't necessarily fish these waters often? Even with all the technology aids, is there still some edge there?
Well, those really good boats that come from far off, they produce here. They know the really good boats, the really good fishermen that come here. They do their homework, before they get here, and they also make friends here. There's a boat called the Wave Paver.
Yeah.
That's in town right now, and it's a world-renowned boat. And they came here. They're pre-fishing. I think they went 7 for 9 on Blue Marlin 4 or 5 days ago. So yeah.
So it's likely we might see them backing into the scales, possibly. Okay.
We're all looking at the same stuff. We're all looking at the same technology. Yes, there's some bottoms that that maybe these guys aren't aware of. Grouper bottoms and that sort of thing. That are out there that might attract fish or hold fish around them. But for the most part, And then you've got which is wonderful. You've got the people who come down, call them weekend warriors or whatever. But the Big Rock is a lucky tournament. It really is a lucky tournament. You get over the right fish with the right tackle, and anybody can win the Big Rock.
Well, you brought it up, the luck, and that's part of it. I
bet it is.
From fishing at 4 years old with your granddad, that luck is a part of it. Do you do anything on your boat to superstitious wise, or anything that you do that you feel like gives you a little bit of luck?
Sure, I eat a banana on the way out every day.
just to put it right in Fate's face there.
Right in their face.
For those listening, bananas are considered pretty unlucky by folks that go out in the water. So Dale says, I don't need that.
Here's a thumb right now.
That's right.
That's right.
Take that.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Big Rock is one of the special tournaments. We hear that from all kind of anglers and captains that come through. What makes it so different for someone I'm sure you've fished, 50 tournaments 50 different ones over the course of being a captain. What makes Big Rock different?
Like I said, it's the Masters. It is the holy grail of tournaments. Everybody wants to win the Big Rock. I've fished it for 34 years. I've come in second twice. Oh wow! My runway's getting pretty short. But in '96 we lost the. I'll never forget. It was Saturday, and we had some engine problems during the week. And got out. Finally got the boat fixed. Fished on Friday, and then Saturday morning the lines were in at 8 o'clock, and we hooked a fish at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. Rocky Hardison, who runs now the Wolverine now, but he was mating at the time on a boat called the Girl Next Door.
Oh wow!
Which was owned by the Girl Next Door magazine.
Oh.
And so anyway, they were in first place with a 535-pound blue marlin. We hooked our fish on on Saturday morning, like I said, and it took us about 2.5 hours to catch the fish, and then we got it ashore. And Dale Ward was the weighmaster then with, Randy Gregory was helping him.
Mm-hmm.
But Dale Ward stepped on the boat, and he said, man, maybe your dreams come true here. So he measured the fish, did what they do. They hoisted it up, and, fish weighed 527 pounds. It was 8 pounds shy.
Oh.
I mean, I about threw up. The rest of my crowd was jumping and hooping and hollering, but anyway, that and then in 2013, we lost to Buddy Hooper. There were only 2 fish caught that year, and Buddy Hooper beat us by 24 pounds.
Oh,
Buddy Hooper
man.
he's on the Marlin Fever. The Hatteras Fever.
Hatteras Fever 2?
No,
There's one.
where's my mind going? Anyway, Buddy Hooper
Okay.
from Hatteras.
Well, you've come close, but no cigar, huh?
I have
Yeah.
come close. My runway's getting pretty short though.
What's it like? 1996, you're talking about backing into that station with a fish.
Mm-hmm.
You've only been doing this for 6 years at that point. Was that a special moment?
It was you're doggone right.
Yeah. We're still at the old way station
That's
down
right.
there now,
That's
more
exactly
downtown.
right. Exactly.
It's a little smaller. Crowd packs it in though.
But it's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
I'd say
Yeah.
that, as far as fishing and, just feeling good about things.
What's the biggest fish you've gotten so far?
Blue marlin, I mean, I've the biggest one we've ever killed was that 527.
Okay.
But, we've caught some much larger ones.
Is there ones that got away from ones that you were hoping to kill?
Yeah, in fact, in '95 we had a fish that year Adrian Holler won the tournament with a 400-pounder. And
Sea
we
striker.
had sea striker, and we were down south with just one other boat and hooked a blue marlin. It was a daggone nice one. And anyway, got the fish right alongside. The fish was laying there. You could have brushed his teeth, but things just didn't go right. And, we didn't get a gaff in the fish, and he got up under the boat and cut him off. With the leader got cut off. But anyway, and that would have definitely won the big rock. So.
But you talk about big ones that y'all have released, and that's the billfish series that you compete in. That's part of it. Is a lot of it release points.
It is.
And I know conservation is a big part of what you do. You work with the Tagga tuna or Tagga Giant tuna folks every December,
Yes,
October.
we have been since 2000.
Wow. Okay. Boy, it's such a joy to be out there in the water and doing what you do. What are you hoping Marlin tournaments look like in the next decade?
I hope the fish stick around.
Yeah.
I've always preached to the mates. You don't kill anything if you don't have to. And the advent of circle hooks and and lured J hook fishing. It's really been good for the speed. For
A
all
lot
of
more
them.
survive, right?
For all of them. Oh yeah. Everybody still fishes when they're not tournament fishing with J hooks, and like marlin, sailfish, blue marlin, they get gut hooked, and it's not good. But anyway, I would say that no doubt, it's a wonderful resource, and we've got to protect it.
Okay.
Dale, you mentioned earlier when you take people out, the first thing you tell them is lower your expectations. Have we normalized catching marlin? Do people need to realize just how hard it is?
It does feel, especially for us who are out there, it feels like it's old hat, but it's not. It's a very special thing.
The statistics used to be that when you went fishing for blue marlin, you would have a 33% chance of seeing one. And then you'd have a 33% chance of hooking one, and then a 33% chance of catching one.
Wow.
So those used to be the odds. I think they've improved.
Yeah.
With the advent of omnisonar, again, I can be riding along in a straight line, and all of a sudden, 800 feet over here, I see a banana, and that's what they look like, a banana with a big red mark in it.
Oh, wow.
And I see that, and I turn, and I start going towards it, and they've got this tilt on the sonar. You can increase your gain and close your distance and tilt down, as you get over the fish, and then if you're fortunate, you get over top of the fish, and then you see the little boomerang, underneath the boat. If it's more than a couple hundred feet deep, you don't get a bite typically, but if it's 150, 120 feet, you start looking back because. So it's I think that's made the huge difference in being able to have an expectation of catching a blue marlin now.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to when the tournament first began, Fabulous Fishermen, they weren't even sure if they were blue marlin out there.
That's right.
And now we know there's a lot out there.
You're talking about guys going 7 for 9 on a tournament.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and big ones, you know. So
Yeah.
it's this is part of it. Yeah. Okay, Dale, thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate you chatting with us, man.
Honored. Thank you very much.
And we hope to see you back into the weigh station next week.
Like I said, my runway's getting very short. Running out of time, so I need to do that.
Hey, this is Paul at Morehead Motor Company. I want to invite you down to Morehead Motor Company to see our inventory where we have something for everyone's budget. Not only do we want to sell you a car, we want to buy your car to put some extra cash in your pocket. We will pay more than the used car giants. So come see us at Morehead Motor Company. If you're not in the market for a vehicle, stop by and check out our large selection of utility and cargo trailers. Morehead Motor Company. We are not only selling cars like candy bars, but we are Carteret County's destination to get more for your car.